Well, let's see if there is anything to worry about. Anneke E is Senior Director of the White House Writers Group. She was a writer, a speechwriter for the former President George W. Bush. It's very good to have you with us this evening. Thanks for joining us on BBC News. It's the afternoon there in Washington, night time here. Tell us what you think at the end of a long couple of days for President Trump's ambitions. Where does this leave him?
Yes, it's definitely been a long week. So where this leaves him is trying to make sure that he doesn't take the fall for not having the Obamacare vote go through. A lot of the headlines here are talking about Trump's first failure. It doesn't look good for sure for Republican Senate, House, and White House to not be able to come through on a major campaign promise of Donald Trump's. But at the same time, what he's trying to do now is say, well, it was the Democrats. And I'd say significantly, his surrogates are only going to talk tomorrow to friendly outlets to send that message.
Now, so in other words, it's going to be kind of Republican sympathetic broadcasters who are going to be doing the interviews tomorrow with people from the administration. I wonder, isn't it reasonable, though, for Democrats to say, well, hang on a minute, you can't really have expected to rely on our votes to save your healthcare reform when you all campaigned to get rid of it and we all campaigned to keep it?
Exactly. It's not realistic to expect any Democrat to vote to do away with the signature Democratic health care plan. The Affordable Care Act is also known as Obamacare, but that's what he's saying to his base. And he's also said that there were a lot of conflicts on the Hill due to long-standing tensions that he just wasn't a part of and couldn't ultimately overcome despite intense personal lobbying and visits by Vice President Pence and himself, bringing people into the White House, into the Oval Office. And so now, as you read from his tweet, his message is, we'll just let Obamacare fail and then we'll do something about it.
The tensions that he's talking about are most striking, aren't they, within the House of Representatives, and particularly this, I think, Freedom Caucus, the group of Republican congressmen and women who really are actually very strongly committed to very specific things like small government and less interference, as they would see it, by federal government. These people are going to be a thorn in his side, not just on healthcare reform, presumably, because their vision is very specific.
Yes, they are the true believers. They're the ones who really have the viewpoint and the conservative principles, and they could not accept the bill that President Trump and Speaker Ryan wanted them to vote on, and they stuck to it. And it was very interesting this past week as these negotiations were going on that the members of this caucus were saying, we love President Trump, and they're some of his strongest supporters, but they're going to insist on actual policy being conservative and sounding more like what a lot of the things President Trump is campaigning on.
Now, the president says, OK, he's going to park that, as you say, he's going to wait for Obamacare to fail and then pick up the pieces. He then says he's going to move on to another of his popular topics, which is tax reform. But given that reducing coverage through the Affordable Care Act was supposed to reduce the deficit, really, and give him a bit more financial room for manoeuvre to do things like reform tax and presumably make some tax cuts, is he going to be able to achieve tax reform, do you think, without having done healthcare first?
Well, one of the things he was saying during this debate was, who knew that healthcare was so complicated? Well, now he's tackling another very complicated topic. So the interesting thing about Obamacare as opposed to tax reform, there are a lot of votes that have been taken on Obamacare, a lot of plans put forward to repeal it fully, to replace parts of it. On tax reform, there hasn't been that same history. So perhaps that gives him more freedom to come up with something or to get something from a conservative group like a think tank. But at the same time, the same person who was pushing for the Obamacare package on the Hill is also going to be pushing for the tax reform bill as well. It's the director of OMB, Office of Management and Budget. So I would imagine there are a lot of lessons learned on this that they will be applying if they want to have a successful vote.
Are you disappointed that you're not still there able to write speeches for the president to explain why things have worked out the way they had?
It would be an interesting challenge were I there to do that, for sure.
I think it would have been. Anneke E, we're glad you're not, because you've been able to talk to us this evening. Thanks so much for being with us on BBC News.
Thanks.
Have a good day. Now, European Union leaders have marked the 60th anniversary